Well, good morning. Back on the Buick project again. Figure I'll give a few tips and tricks that I do with putting a small block Chevy together. On the early 350s, this bolt hole right here actually goes all the way into the push rod cavity for the fuel pump. If you don't put the bolt back in, or at least plug that hole up, dirt and crud will get in there, plus oil will always constantly ooze out. So I always find a short little bolt, and I put a little bit of copper washer on sometimes, a little bit of Permatex, and then put that in there. Some applications you'll use that as a bracket so you won't have to worry about it, but I'm not going to use any of these holes for anything. So you always got to make sure you plug up that hole, top hole. And that's also a trick for putting a push rod tube in, is you hold the tube up, or the rod up with your finger when this isn't it, when the pump's not on here. Put a screwdriver through that hole and that'll hold the rod up, slip the fuel pump in, and then away you go. That's my one little tip. Another little thing I do, the end gaskets you always get in the intake set, little hunks of rubber, just throw them away. Don't use them. All you're going to get is a nightmare from them. Just a bead of silicone runs through both sides of the valley. When you put the intake on, it'll just ooze out a little bit, not a lot, don't go crazy. That'll seal way better. And then what I also do, I take a center punch and I just put a center hole punch all the way down, which makes it a real rough surface, and it'll give the silicone something to bite onto, and it won't let it slide out. I do that on both sides. And I also do it on the intake manifold. You don't have to get crazy with it, just real lightly. And it's not going to show up. Oop, there it is. Another thing you got to do, you always got to pay attention, is on small blocks, these bolt holes here go all the way into the intake valley, or the lifter valley I should say. So you got to put a little Permatex on those bolts, on the threads, otherwise oil will ooze out, and always, your intake manifold always have that oily look to it. The end ones you don't have to do that to, but the four center ones, both sides, you have to do that too. Another trick, I don't know if it's a trick, but a tip, make sure your intake bolts aren't too long and it hits the push rod. I've seen a lot of people, mostly kids that hang around my shop here, they're building their mud trucks, they'll fire it up and it'll have a dead miss. And you go over there and they just put an intake manifold on and they found some bolts laying in a coffee can somewhere, and it's 3/8 bolt, it's 3/8 bolt. No, it's not. And it'll be all the way in there, it'll jam the push rod. If I had $1 for every time I came across that. So those are my quick little tips of the morning. Got stuff painted over here. Just trying to get this thing stuck together and in that car. That is the goal for today. Should be able to do that. I got the door locked, phone's off, so people shouldn't be able to find me. So, back at it. Alrighty. Motor is back in. I did have it videotaping of putting it in, but for whatever reason it didn't record right. It came out all funky, so I don't have any video of that. But it's in the car, mostly hooked up. Transmission's in. So not too bad for today. So next up is the carburetor. Get that cleaned out and rebuilt. Get the course part painted and then the radiator mount made. Figure out that stuff, and then get the side skirts on and headers. Get the flanges for them yet. Weld that up. Paint them. So still lots to do, but we're one step closer. We're getting her done, little by little. So that's it. talk to you guys later.